You were with President Zelenskyy a few months ago in Ukraine. Here you are seeing him in this setting tonight. What was that like for you? What were you thinking as you listened?
Well, I was thinking personally how hard this guy works, traveling to the front one day and then traveling to Washington the next day. It's not an easy assignment. And then to give a wonderful historical speech like that in his third language, which he's not accustomed to doing. Usually he speaks Ukrainian, and here he comes to us and he speaks to us in our own language. I was thinking of, it's not how he talked about it, but how proud one should be to be on the side of this man. And how proud one must have been in that chamber to be close to greatness, because I think what we saw tonight was greatness, and we should be appreciative of that.
He thanked us tonight. He thanked the American people. You've made the point recently that we should be grateful to Ukraine.
It's very much the case. People talk about the numbers, and sometimes Republicans use the phrase blank check, but the check isn't blank. There's a number on the check that we give to Ukraine, and it's not a big number. It's about 2% of our total defense budget, so really a rounding error. It's about 5% of what we spend for the F-35 fighter program alone. And for that money, we are getting something which we couldn't give to ourselves. We wouldn't be able to defend Europe the way the Ukrainians are doing. What the Ukrainians have done is they've put a major war in Europe beyond the horizon because they're fighting it now. They've also improved our security around the world in China. What everyone in Washington was worried about was a Chinese move on Taiwan. Because the Ukrainians have done such a good job at defending themselves, it's made it much less likely that China will try something in Taiwan. And therefore, in this way as well, they've made a major conflict less likely. So we've spent relatively little money, and we've gotten, frankly, an embarrassing amount of security in return. So that's what I mean when I say we should be grateful. But I think we should also be grateful for the example. When Zelenskyy said, as he did this evening, that they've won the battle of the mind, what he meant was they've given us reassurance that the good guys can win, that the democracies can hold up, that maybe, just maybe, things can turn out the right way.
What had to happen in Ukraine? What did President Zelenskyy have to see for him to decide he could leave the country for the first time since this war started, could come to the United States and get back there very quickly, that he could actually do this trip?
I think that's an important question, because when you look at the man, you look how he comports himself, you look how he speaks, you look how he dresses, you realize that where he wants to be is with his people. Like that in some way he was more comfortable on the front line than he was, no doubt, in DC. He's when I talked to him, the word he used over and over again was represent, that he felt like during the war he was representing his people. And he's right. He's doing what they want him to do. They're all on the same side. They're all thinking about the same thing. But it's quite clear that, even as they're doing the dying, we're doing the supplying. And he's very aware of our politics, and he's very aware of how important American public opinion is. He's very aware that changes are coming in DC. And I think he chose very strategically and very intelligently a time to come and deliver this important speech. And so I think that's really it. I mean, he would rather be at home with his people, but he understands that there was a message that had to be conveyed. And that message is, we're doing our part. And we're grateful to you, Americans, that you're helping us, that you're doing your part.
I think possibly the most quoted part of the speech, and I think going forward, it will be the most quoted part of the speech in Congress during debates, if any, about funding aid to Ukraine, is when he said, your money is not charity, it's an investment in the global security and democracy. That point will be made repeatedly after he is back in Ukraine.
It's hard to think of a better investment, honestly. I mean, we spend nearly $1 trillion a year, the better part of $1 trillion a year on security. For a tiny fraction of that, around 2%, the Ukrainians are contributing to security in Europe and Asia and all around the world. It's hard to think of a better investment. I mean, if one had said before this war started that we could spend so little money and 0 American lives and get this much return on it, no one would have believed it. But that's how it's happened. Thanks to Zelensky staying, thanks to his courage and the courage of his people, and thanks to the intelligence of the Ukrainian armed forces and the courage of the Ukrainian armed forces, that's how it's turned out. It has turned out to be an unexpectedly good investment with an amazing return from an American point of view.